Hello, welcome to the Well After Hours. I'm Beverly Allen, and I'm so glad you gathered with us today to have conversation around the well. Our conversation today is about moving from pain to purpose with passion. And I'm so elated because the subject that we're going to be talking about is a sensitive one that I'm sure is relatable in a large fashion to our audience. And given some of the statistics that I have recently read, I'm sure it's going to be very relatable, especially in the United States, where it says every 92 seconds an American is sexually assaulted. And on the average, there are 321,500 victims, ages 12 and older, of rape and of sexual assault. Wow, that is quite alarming. And they say younger people are the highest risk of sexual violence. There are so many more statistics, and I have experts here that are going to inform you of so much more. But I'm so blessed to have at the Well After Hours two amazing women as my guests today who have shared a similar experience of pain, but they have taken that pain and redirected it to purpose with great passion. And I'm so glad to welcome Tamika Robinson and Tamesia Scott. Thank you for being with us today, and I'm just so happy that you're here.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
You know, there's a lot that I want to allow you all to tell your story because you share the same experience, and it's going to motivate and encourage so many women today. I mean, all of us are affected in one way or another. But I want to tell a little bit about what you all are doing because I'm so proud. And so these are two women of God who have faith and who are walking with the Lord Jesus Christ and are worshiping them. And they're going to be able to show you what God does for one, he can do for another. And so we're grateful. But I want to start off and talk about Tamika, let me put my glasses on so I can see what I'm reading, who has several letters behind her name. Her credentials as an MA, an LPC, and an ACS. She is a clinical supervisor for Somerset County Richard Hall Community Mental Health Center, the Adult Partial Care Program in Bridgewater, New Jersey. She also works as a home therapist for children, teens, and families in Central New Jersey. She serves as a co-chair of the Culture Humility Committee at Richard Hall, and she is the anti-stigma team lead for the Adult Partial Care Client Program. She is also a volunteer for the Piscataway Police Department's Domestic Violence Response Team, where she was recently nominated to be the 2019 co-chairperson. I mean, her bio is really long. I asked them to give me a bio, a brief bio. Even the brief bio, we could take up the whole show just going through her bio. But I just wanted to give you a little bit about her, and she's got all her social media and website information will be listed at the end of the show. So I'm glad to, present that to you. And to her daughter, the wonderful, affectionately called Diamond. She's currently a resident director in PA, and Diamond has gained a lot of personal experience in trauma at a young age. She uses her story as a victim to share how you can become victorious over your situation. Diamond enjoys sharing her story, and via interactive speaking engagements. She's had the honor of being the student government president at the Cedar Crest All-Women's College, and she has also interned at the 2016 Democratic Convention. She's traveled to Guatemala to work with indigenous people, and she has traveled to Greece on an exploratory trip. Diamond graduated from Cedar Crest College with a degree in new media and film studies and is a force to be reckoned with. I second that. Well, thank you all. I want to let you all share your story. And the great thing about it is they're mother and daughter as well. I mean, they have joined forces, and I'm telling you, they're doing great things in the kingdom and the body of Christ, and just the worldwide. They're doing things and working with people from all over. And I'm just so godly proud, that you represent the kingdom.
Thank you very much.
So I want you to tell your story. Now, your daughter is young, and it's you things happen to parents, and sometimes it also falls on children. Tell me your story before we get to Diamond, which you would like to share.
So basically, after college, I met a gentleman and we started dating, and I had a child out of wedlock, which is Diamond.
Gift.
Yeah, and she was a great gift, and basically that's why I named her Diamond. Like they say, diamonds is a girl's best friend. So basically, I had Diamond, and I'm a mother that's very watchful. Things didn't work out with me and her dad. So the courts identified that he had to have weekend visitations. And so that's where everything happened. So with our story, I had visited my aunt's church in DC. Never been to this church before in my life. And the pastor stopped the service when we walked in, and he said, the Lord has a word for somebody in the church. So he was walking around and he was just talking, and he said, I don't know who this word is for, but all the things that he was saying was things that was happening in my life. So my mom and my aunt started nudging me, saying, I think that he's talking about you. So basically, at some point when he was speaking, tears started coming down my eyes, because I knew exactly that he was talking about nobody but me. And I was like, how could he know these things? But he still didn't know who it was for. So then he came on our side of the church, and he was in my area. And earlier he had asked if you needed anything from the Lord, could you stand up? And I was one of the people standing, but because he was talking so long, I had sat down. So then he had asked me, he said, excuse me, ma'am. He said, were you standing earlier? And I said, yes, I was. And he said, well, do you mind standing again? And I said, okay. So I stood up, and then he asked me if I was a Christian. And I said, I consider myself a Christian. I may not pay my tithes like I should or pray as much as I should, but I consider myself a Christian. So then after that, he started really talking about the enemy, that God has some great things for me to do to help other people, but how I was going to go through some serious trials and tribulations, and how the enemy was trying to kill me personally. Wow. And I knew I was going through some things in my life, but I didn't know what else I was going to go through. And so when he started sharing the story, he just comes out of the blue and says, where's your daughter? My daughter was not with me. She was at her other grandmother's house. And so I said, well, she's not with me. She's at her other grandmother's house. And then he said, she should be with you. And so he started saying how I'm supposed to be watching over her and things like that. And he just started sharing that, things that I was going to change my field of work. At the time, I was working at Prudential, and he said that I was going to go into the field of talking. He said that, asked me, was I looking for a house, which I was, but I wasn't working at the time. I just like to look at houses, and I was like, thinking like, if I bought a house, this is a house.
How we get, yeah.
Right, and so I had been going out looking, and so he said, the Lord said 30 days. 30 days you're going to be in your house, and he said, it's not our 30 days, but God will confirm when the 30 days is. Mm-hmm. And so I had started a new job, and 30 days on the job, I was signing my contract for my house. So
I tell you, God knows how to get a word to you, doesn't he? Oh,
yes,
my goodness.
And so we had visited the house several times, and when we went to sign the contract on the house, in the garage, it was a message written, and it said Matthew 5:16. And so we were just like, oh my goodness. So most of the things that this pastor was saying to me started coming to fruition. So he didn't tell me in detail what I was going to go through, but he said that I was going to go through some serious stuff and it would make me like want to lose my mind. So,
Wow.
Through my marriage, I was going through a lot of trials and tribulations. And, you know, I was going to school to try to be a therapist, and it seemed like the closer I got to trying to be a therapist, the more struggle that came. And so I had a son, and my son, he was very, you know, he was young when I started school. I want to say he was like 2 years old. And my daughter was very young. She's 6 years older than my son. So my daughter would spend the night over the weekends at her dad's. And one weekend that she was over there, she was sexually assaulted. One of the things that the gentleman said, he said that you and your daughter is going to do business together. Like, y'all going to do something together. I don't know what it is. And he also said to me that, he said, whatever you guys do, he said, you're going to be sharing your testimony and the way that God brought you out. And he said, millions of people will be saved by the way that you handled your situation. Wow. He also shared that we'll be traveling from state to state and country to country, helping people. And we just did our first...
Which you are doing.
Right. We just did our first event in the Bahamas for a mother-daughter cruise. Wow. Everything that he said is coming to fruition. It's like 20 years, 21 years later, but everything just like that. And it's like sometimes I've seen people be prophesied over, but I've never know like if the thing happened. Exactly. So it wasn't like I didn't believe him. I just didn't know. But in my heart of hearts, I could feel that the Lord took time to speak to me that day.
Wow. And
when you get that feeling, you know. It was like when I came home from work from DC that weekend, I just started packing up. One of my girlfriends that went to church with me was my roommate, and I told her about what was said, and I said, we need to pack this house because my lease is up in 30 days, and he said, I'm gonna be in my house in 30 days, and I believe in the Lord.
Wow. All right. Well, faith without works is dead, right? You were moving on faith.
Right. So on to the story with my daughter.
Can I ask you this? Was your husband ever abusive?
So with my husband, not her father, but my husband, that's my son's father.
Oh, okay.
My husband was emotionally abusive. Yeah. Like the things that he said and did. And I could tell that in his life when he was a child, because he had a lot of anxiety issues, that things like that happened to him. And at first I didn't see these things because I was just like a lay person, but I went to school for counseling while I was married. And so that's kind of where the apple cart got shook up, because now I'm learning to be healthier and I'm seeing things that I don't normally see, and it just don't feel right in my spirit. And so so that's how things got shaken up. And even back to when I was telling you, my girlfriend that was living with me, my roommate at the time, and I told her that we were going to move, actually her husband killed her in a murder-suicide last year. So it's like all these things that this pastor said, that you're going to go through some horrible things in your life, but the way you deal with it, and even just today, is still my voice and my chest, my heart is palpitation, just to think about it and missing her, thinking about what my daughter had to endure, everything that we had to go through. But you know what I say? I said, the devil done messed with the wrong person.
Oh, there you go.
Because this is how I feel. Now you done messed with my baby, so now you put me in a position that I'm forced to go ahead and help all these other mothers and fathers out here to protect their children.
Isn't that beautiful? I tell you, that holy boldness will stand up, won't it? It's like, oh, you want to fight? I got to fight for you now. I'm going to take the fight to you.
Right. So basically, anytime you see your child hurt,
Yes.
You want to do something.
Yes.
And at the time, I was working with teenage sex offenders. So I was in the field where I was a counselor helping to rehabilitate teenage sex offenders in a wilderness camp so that we can get them back integrated into society. And this happens to my daughter. So of course I can't go to work. I'm to the point where I'm so depressed that I had to basically take a leave of absence. I wouldn't get up to just take care of my daily needs, brushing your teeth, just taking care of yourself, getting dressed and stuff like that. And I had a young son who I told you I had the baby.
Yes.
With my mom had to come from New Jersey because we were living in Georgia at the time, so that she can help me with the family because I just wasn't in no condition.
Yes.
But I did make sure we were seeing a Christian psychologist. So I did make sure that we went to all our appointments. That was like the only thing I would get up to do because I thought it was to help my daughter. So I would get up and go to his appointments, and he had knew us beforehand because me and my husband had did marital counseling with him. So he knows how I normally dress, look, and stuff like that. So when he saw me coming to the
something was wrong. He's like, wait a minute.
He saw me coming to the office looking any kind of way. He was just like, wait a minute, we need to do something.
And that's awesome. I don't want you to lose your thought, but I was just thinking, because we've talked about that, about, like you say, you went to a Christian psychologist, a counselor who could talk to you, who knows the whole man, the spirit, soul, and body, and deal with you. People sometimes in the church are so resistant to professional counseling or to help, not understanding that these people know the signs of how we were made up, how God created us, and how to, integrate even faith into it. So it's not like you just pray.
Right.
You have to get up and do something and take some steps, and God will help you, and He gives you the right people to help us. And so I'm glad you brought that out,
So there are people in the field that are Christians that incorporate that into their therapeutic sessions.
Yes. And that you were able to, you knew someone even beforehand. So it's great. Yeah.
So basically, while I was down one day, my daughter came into the room and she laid in the bed next to me. And she said, "Mommy, you know how you always help everybody else?" She said, "Why don't we help other kids like me? Why don't we tell what happened to me and help other kids, because other kids might have had this happen to them?" And when she said that, it kind of brought me, it just gave me a purpose, you know what I'm saying? Because like at that point in my life, I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Yes, I know.
Like I was mad at God.
I know. I say that. I'm glad you're being honest about it, because that's how you would feel. You're helping everybody else's children. God, how could you let this happen to my child?
And this is what I was saying. I was like, Lord, I'm sitting here working with the worst of the worst, like every day walking these wilderness camps and working with these sex offenders and putting myself like in the fire, doing restraints in the woods on the gravel and all this stuff.
Wow.
And I said, and this same population that I'm here to help, you would allow that to happen to my child? Why would you do that to me?
Wow.
I was angry.
Yes.
But then when my daughter said that, it was like, okay, if this is what you want, this is what we're gonna do. And immediately we started buying puppets. AmeriCorps made us a puppetry stage that we took out. And we would go to churches, YMCAs, anywhere that would have us.
Yes.
And we would do puppet shows. And so that's how I got my kids involved. So my kids, of course, kids like puppets.
Yes,
they were young.
exactly.
My daughter was 9 when this incident happened.
Wow.
So,
and to think she came up with the idea, why don't we do something to help other people?
Right.
Wow, that says a lot. That says volumes, for not only for her at that time, how the Lord had equipped her and enabled her even to get through it at such a young age.
Right.
And that who know that the child could help the parent, because
Yes.
that's her feeling like that helped pull you out of it, because we go through guilt and everything, like it's like, and hurt and so many emotions, you know, as a
Right.
parent, like you said, as a mom, like, you hurt my baby, what, really?
And you know what happened too was just hearing things that people asked her. Like, people would ask her, well, when this person approached you to do this, why didn't you do this? She's 9 years old. Like,
Insensitive and
it just
not
made me
knowledgeable.
every day like cringe.
Yeah.
And when we went back out into society, it was like, if we had somebody, like, we visited this church, and this particular pastor was a good pastor. We was visiting his church for a while, but he had the same name as this person. His name was so close to the person that did this to my daughter. It was hard. And then the church that we went to in Smyrna, Georgia, the person that did this to my daughter, he lived in Smyrna, so we was watching our back every time we went to church, and we were felt like we couldn't even go to our church because we didn't know if he would be there or what would happen, you know?
Wow. This story is so amazing, and I know that while this is only a half-hour show, we're not ending it at this point. We're going to continue. There's going to be a part 2. So don't think you're going to miss anything. You'll just have to tune in the next week, or the next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on Facebook, and hear part 2 of this story, because it's not going to end here. So look forward to it, because there's so much more that is going to bless you, and that we're going to hear from Diamond, and you don't want to miss this, because this is going to be awesome. So meet us again at the Well After Hours, 7:30 p.m. every Thursday, and we're looking forward to it. God bless you.
Bye.